Whoever told you boys I was a pirate? Who's this? I never met this gentleman, Jack Stock, and neither have you. I know it's good for you. But I know a bit about the man. You boys want to stay clear of a dangerous fellow like that. Besides, I hear he's retired. Sold his sloop to Maiden's Fancy, took his gold and bought a farm in some dull Puritan town. Boys been to sea? No, not on one of them coast-hugging codfishers. I mean to Dover, Barbados, the Windward Islands. Of course, I'm no expert in piratical matters, but I have it on the best authority from gentlemen who know such things. Piracy is not all rum and blazing guns and bloody murder. Most pirates will fire a shot or two across their prize's bow and demand surrender. A successful pirate, you see, relies on fear. But a pirate worth his salt never tortures his victims, threatens them with torture till they tell him where the gold is. There's no point in sinking your prize. Dismast them, I used to say. Let them take their chances. They make it back to Port Royal, they'll refit and set out again with a full hold ripe for the picking. Ah, yes, some prizes I've taken 3 times over. The trick was, you see, not to cripple them so badly they can't make it back to port. I'll tell you boys the God's own truth. I never killed a man and surrendered to him. Nor did I sink a ship by intention. If some of the ones that we left behind didn't make it back to port, well, that's their misfortune. It's not mine. But you see some strange things at sea. Things a man can't explain. Things that by their very impossibility make a man realize that there is more under heaven than can be reckoned with a compass or plotted on a chart. It started so. With the lookout up in the crow's nest as he'd been all day, dusk was coming on when he sighted the other ship. First he said it was a little coaster, then a brig, then a frigate. Then he changed his mind a half-dozen times till I damned his eyes for a drunkard. But when we could finally see her, close enough that she should have been as clear as day, I myself couldn't make out what she was. First she had one mast, like the Margarita, one of my first prizes, fondly remembered. But then she seemed to turn. She had 2 masts. Like the Fortitude, an English merchantman full of pepper we took just off Cape Cod. 3 masts. Like the Dutch frigate we captured years ago, the Guden Roos, full of porcelain, fine plates and dishes. Well, I eat off of to this day. Then 1 mast again. Lit sails in a calm sea, and her waterline seemed to change as well, as though she were raising up and lowering herself on legs in and out of a bath, and not a single man on deck. Well, no one, not the sharpest eyed of us, could make out his name, the name for sure, or the figurehead. Most of the lads, though, swore that up and down that it was one ship or another that we had taken at some time in our career. But then, even as we debated the matter and damned the fading light, poof, she vanished. Unsettling, but not unheard of. I mean, who wouldn't run from a ship flying the Jolly Roger? But we sighted her again the next night at dusk. Oh, she was a fine three-masted ship, almost certainly the Dutchman's Roos. Heavy in the water, brightly painted with the figurehead of a woman in a scarlet dress. I saw her, the figurehead. Her black hair blowing in the wind, and the air was very still. And so well carved was she that for a moment, I thought she turned her head and smiled at me, and that her smile became, for a second, a leer. This time, prize couldn't run. She lay dead in the water under a setting sun with limp sails. We hailed the ship and came alongside her with no response from her crew. And we grappled and clambered aboard an empty, echoing shell. Well, I suspect the trick at first. I mean, a fellow in my trade learns to tread real careful. But no crewman came bellowing out of the hatches, brandishing swords. I walked her whole deck, though I felt befuddled more than once, as the way aft seemed longer than the way fore. Oh, but this was nothing beside what I found below. She was stripped clean as a plucked fowl. Not a barrel of pepper or a sack of coffee or a box of candles, and certainly no gold. And always, as I walked about her in the twilight, that strange, befuddling sense that whichever way you turned, the ship was changing, becoming larger and smaller, growing sails and shedding them behind your back. Staircases seemed to move or disappear. Cabins shrink, grow again. The lads were spooked, and they returned one by one to the maiden's fancy. And after a quarter of an hour, I wanted no more of her myself. And what's more, I had promised my Maker that if he let me just set foot once more, whole in mind and body, on my own ship, I would turn her for New England and join that city on the hill, the shining example of God's light on earth. And then those last awful moments on that strange ship, as I clambered over the side to life and safety, I turned and I saw, as darkness fell, not a ship, but a hulk, dismasted, and not empty, but peopled with silent, still, staring men I had left. Crippled ships like the Margarita and the Fortitude, Golden Roos, who had never seen land again. Well, I stood on my own deck, shaking like a man with a fever. I never looked back at that ship as we pulled away from her, and I never asked a single man of my crew what he saw that day, nor have any spoken of it since. So, no, I haven't, come to think of it, boys. Met this gentleman, Jack Stark. It would be best if you hadn't either.